A lot of questions about creatine. I think a lot of people might be concerned about taking it, but it's been in the news lately quite often. And I think we're just going to chat around if it's good or bad.
Yeah, I think the first thing we must do is we must maybe tell the listeners what creatine is. So creatine, the compound, so it's not a peptide, it's not a protein, it's actually just a compound in the body, and it's one of our energy production systems.
Yeah, so you probably can say it's not an essential element because we do make creatine from amino acids, arginine, glycine, and methionine. So your body produces it. So technically, it's not an essential element, but we also get it through food, especially meat and fish. But under certain circumstances, we need more than we actually produce, or sometimes we don't get enough in through our diets.
Yeah, and I think I maybe want to shock our listeners a little bit because one of the questions it was who should take it. So, and in our research, we've gone through most of the newest articles and the oldest articles, and the consensus pretty much now is everyone should take it. So from old to young, and we'll go through it today, but we'll talk about how much and what you can expect and all that. But I think we need to get that out there. So if you're not taking it, you should be asking yourself, why not?
Exactly. There's north of 600 publications on the use of creatine. And it's been around since 1993, commercially available. So that's north of 30 years available to take. And it became popular in that 92 Barcelona Olympics when some of the athletes, they said that creatine helped them in their performance. And then it was a bit of a hype. And I think over time, some people thought it might cause some side effects or it might be and have a negative impact. And then it moves into the realm of bodybuilders and athletes, and the general population. I don't know how much of the general population was still interested in creatine until recently, because of all the new studies that has been published.
Yeah, let's go back and tell people exactly what creatine is. So creatine is a compound, as we said, made up of arginine, glycine, and methionine, and it's one of the four major energy production systems in the body. I like to take a view on it, to think how do you think about energy production in the body. So let's say you're going to a braai or a barbie, as the Aussies will call it, and you're going to start making a fire. So you have to have a match, you have to have some kind of fire lighter, and then you have to have logs, and then you have to put your meat on something. So if you think about this whole system, the lighting of the match, then that'll get to your fire lighter and then make your fire with the logs, and the fire will transfer. So creatine is actually this match in this whole process. So it's actually that first 10 seconds of energy production, high intensity energy. So if you think about a 10-second sprint, that is pretty much creatine. So, and for our scientists out there, creatine it goes into the body and binds with phosphate, and then donates that phosphate in to form ATP from ADP.
Yes, so the energy source that we use in our bodies for sprinting and metabolic processes, everything is ATP, adenyl triphosphate. So that's exactly what it does. So we use that ATP to generate energy, because when you take that one phosphate off the ATP to make ADP, that energy that's released, that's the energy that you use. So the creatine that you mentioned is then donating that phosphate to that ATP so that you have that first 10 seconds of energy. So in essence, it supports that initial burst of energy. That's the sprint, that's the pull-up, that's the squat, that's that initial, especially type 2 fiber support that it gives in muscle terms.
Okay, and we get one on one. So one molecule of creatine will give you from ATP one boust of energy,
Yes.
1 ATP.
Yes. So that's the match.
That's the match. And then you get the firelighter. And that's glucose. Glucose going into the process of glycolysis. So meaning you're breaking down glucose to form ATP again, and there you get 2 ATPs in the process of glycolysis. So that is
so that's a little bit slower and just follows on to the initial burst of energy that was supported by the creatine. So the glucose then, it's still, we're talking about that anaerobic type of phase like in the old days. We don't like that term anymore, but it's when we use the pyruvate line to generate ATP through that system.
Good. And so now we've had glycolysis, we're into pyruvate or lactate, depending on how anaerobic a process is, and then you jump into that Krebs cycle. And into the Krebs cycle, depending how that electron chain, how you go down the electron chain, it's a longer process, but you get a lot of ATP, up to I think 34 ATPs in the whole process, but it's a lot longer. And that's the 800-meter athletes, those guys that
beyond.
Yeah, and then beyond that, we've got the big logs. So the big logs is pretty much your free fatty acids. So they sustain the fire for long, but they form embers. They don't have this fire. Okay, so that's the longer distance running and the zone 2 and all those guys in the free fatty acids. So now we know where creatine fits. I will bring the Bri grid in a little bit because that is protein. So protein, it doesn't give you any energy. It maybe glow a little bit, and when you touch it, it'll burn, but it doesn't really give energy as such as fire. So protein is not really one of our energy sources in the body.
No.
So now we know creatine is actually the lighter. So the more you have, the better your first 10 seconds. And that's why it helps bodybuilders so much, because they pretty much just do strength quick and they don't go on forever. They want to be strong as possible.
Yes, but it's also because it's fueling that fast twitch muscles, fibers. It's also important in the older person when you misstep and you almost fall. That quick reaction time, that's all fueled by ATP and supported by creatine and phosphate. So it's not just the bodybuilders. And I think that's where we're moving towards now, to understand that, yes, this is a bodybuilding supplement, but it is not. It's actually a supplement for all of us.
Yeah.